Oh, come let us adore Him. 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 All right, good morning, everybody. Would you stand with us today? Welcome to Timberline Windsor. My name's Patrick. If you're with Jan this morning, we just want to invite you to join in worship with us, all right? There is a song, I know it well, a melody that's never failed. On mountains high, in valleys low, my soul will rest, my confidence in you alone. Hope has a name, His name is Jesus. My Savior's cross has set this sinner free. Hope has a name, His name Let's all sing this together. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. And sing choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Oh, sing all ye bright hosts of heaven above. Glory to God, all glory in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. One more time, sing that out. And oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. All right, good morning. You can go ahead and have a seat for just a second. It's good to be with you all today. Hope you're doing well. My name is Patrick. I'm the worship pastor here at Timberline Windsor, and just want to say a special welcome to you this morning. I want to call your attention to the connection card that's on the seat in front of you there. That connection card just has a QR code on it, and if you scan that, that's going to take you to our website where you can find a lot of different ways to get connected. And so that's really our heart for you, to see you get connected beyond just our weekend services. We have lots of different ways. If you're new, we'd love to hear from you, and just let us know that you're new. If you're giving, thank you for your faithfulness in giving through Timberline. And there's other connection opportunities, there's connection groups and service opportunities. So we just want to let you know about those different ways that you can get connected. And so also I want to let you know that today we have a baptism class coming up. Today at 5 p.m. right here at Timberline Windsor. If you're interested in taking that next step in your faith through baptism, we're just excited about that for you. And so we want to give you this opportunity to come to this class if you're just interested in more about baptism, or if you want to just take that next step and get baptized. Check this class out. It's going to be today at 5 p.m. right here at Timberline Windsor, okay? So that's our baptism class, and then Christmas Eve is coming up, and we want to let you know about our service times. At 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 o'clock, we'll have services, and that's going to be a great time. There's going to be a family service, no child care provided, but we're just really looking forward to that time where we can just celebrate our Savior's birth. So right now, if you wouldn't mind just standing back up with me, we're going to go ahead and continue to worship.
In the darkness we were waiting without hope, and when
Yes, God, we give you praise, Jesus. We thank you, God, that you are the King of Kings, that you came for us, Jesus, that you stepped out of heaven for us. Lord, we just celebrate that today, the majesty, God, the wonder of who you are and what you've done, God. What a mystery it is. The Bible even says that it's a mystery, your gospel, the salvation that we have through you, God, and we're just in awe and wonder of that today and of who you are, more importantly, God, just of who you are, for revealing yourself to us, God, through this event. Thank you for stepping out of heaven, coming into a cradle, and then ultimately dying on a cross for us, God. We're so thankful for that, Jesus. We just worship you right now. God, we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Well, before you're seated this morning, just find 2 or 3 people. If you don't know their first name, just ask them what their first name is.
As you may have noticed or heard, this month, basically, at this campus, we're celebrating 10 years as a campus. December 24th, 2011, this campus began services. And so we're not going to celebrate this year's 10-year birthday on Christmas Eve. Jesus gets all the glory on Christmas Eve. And so we'll take a little bit of celebration in the weeks leading up to it. So that little bit of celebration is going to be this week and next week. And hopefully you notice we have a lot of cupcakes. First service reacted like they like the cupcakes, but their response and how many cupcakes are left, I think you guys need to handle the lion's share of it. But cupcakes and some balloons, and that's all cute and good, and we're glad that we're celebrating our 10-year birthday in that way. But when we sat down and thought as a campus, what would really honor the legacy and the heart of why we're a campus, we thought, man, we want to be a campus in Weld County in Windsor because we want to be involved and bless and love the community around us and the organizations that support the community around us. So what we're doing this week and next week is we have 2 partner organizations that we're inviting here. This week, it's Pregnancy Resource Center and Serve 6.8, and next week it'll be 2 more. But we're inviting them here, and we're doing a couple of things. We're saying, man, during this Christmas season, we want to bless you with a financial blessing above and beyond what we normally do as a campus. So we want to extend some financial support extra for you. And then we want to just allow you to have exposure to the church family. You can talk to them, they can talk to you, see what's going on around these organizations. So make sure on your way out, that celebrates the legacy and the heart of this campus. 10 years, we are excited about our past and excited about where God's leading us, and we can't think of a better way than to bless and love our community. So as an extension of a birthday present to Timberline Windsor, go talk to those organizations and let them know how much you love them and support them. So next week, it'll be 2 other ones, and we'll go from there. Our teaching team came together a handful of weeks back and talked about, well, where do we want to head with this Advent season? And one of the things that we thought about was we really want to awaken and stir and lean into the wonder and the awe of Christmas. But here's the thing, wonder and awe, those can be some tough things to kind of wrap our heads around because for one, it's not exactly something that we should expect on a regular basis. If you're living a life that expects wonder and awe in your normal life, then maybe you don't have a view of how big, how vast, how extraordinary wonder and awe really are by their definition. I remember Pastor J. Matt talking about a goal for a student ministry event at the Fort Collins campus where he said he would like students to get the first impression where they didn't know in a moment whether to laugh or cry, and they had no idea what hit them. That was his goal, wonder and awe. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like that a little bit. I can only imagine, because I don't really think I can adequately picture it, what the shepherds experienced. The night that the darkness broke open and a host of heavenly angels broke through the night and proclaimed praise for what God was doing. Wonder and awe. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like that. And while many of us find confidence and maybe even nostalgia in the familiarity of the Christmas story, what we're wanting to do in this season at Timberline is build on that. We're wanting more than that. We're wanting to launch from that into a sense of wonder and awe that, as Pastor Jeff masterfully wrote, we want to rediscover our wonder as we look at the story that should quicken our pulse, widen our eyes, and make us say, what? So at Christmas time, we joyously celebrate that God's love came so far to rescue us. But so little about that vast distance is understood. It's largely unexplored, unfathomed. And so that's the big task that we're going to take on today. To set the stage for these weeks of Advent, we're going to try to find the jaw-dropping awe and wonder that starts with the furthest journey ever taken, from cosmos to the cradle. John 1 through 18 is where we're going to be today. It's a masterful, poetic prologue, and I would love to do what we normally do, which is kind of read a few verses, unpack them, read a few more, but there's just so much here in just the first 18 verses. This could be a whole sermon series. Just the first 18 verses of the Gospel of John could be a whole sermon series. So I'm just going to read it straight through, and it'll be on the screens if you want to follow along, if you don't have Bibles or Bible apps in front of you. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness, to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory. Glory is of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks before me, because he was before me.' For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side. He has made him known." So you're John the Apostle, and it's been decades upon decades since your ministry partners were at your side. They all were murdered for their faith decades ago. Not you. You were exiled away on an island to live out the end of your days. And you're well into your seasoned years, your late 80s, maybe early 90s, and you've become quite the artful creative in your old age and in your spiritual wisdom. We see that through this poetic prologue, and you can also see that in another work that John labored hard on, the book of the Great Reveal, Revelation. And exiled in your old age, as you look back on your glory days, the times when you walked and talked with Jesus, listened to him, watched him die, saw his resurrected, risen body. When you look back on your golden days, this is what comes out. John 1 through 18. It's remarkable. It's awesome. That's the scope and the soundtrack that old man John wants us to grasp. It's what he wants us to start with, to start his whole account. And he has one purpose for us and from us: to believe. Verse 7, John the Baptist came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe. Verse 12, to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. And then after those two verses, 96 more times throughout his account, including the world's most recognized verse in chapter 3, John reiterates his main point: so that all will believe. Now, what he wants us to believe is what follows this prologue. And it's what we're going to unpack over the next 2 weeks of this Advent Christmas story of Jesus. So when John wants to set the stage for this cosmic, vast picture of the salvation plan of God, he starts with the most wide-ranging, vast, basic thing he can think of. He goes back to Genesis. He goes back to the creation account. Old man John draws on Genesis, the first chapter, what we know as the first chapter, to kind of model and inform his account. I heard a Bible Project podcast. It's a group named Bible Project. Great, wonderful organization. And you can just search up Bible Project podcast John 1. And it's a whole hour-long episode on how the account of John 1 is built on, literally structured. You could overlap it with Genesis 1. Old man John, he didn't just stumble across that. He's saying when you need to understand the Christmas story, you need to understand the creation story. So you've got to kind of read John's prologue, not just as a simple narrative, reading it through, because you're going to come across some repetition that doesn't make sense. And you're going to come across like, I thought we just said that 2 sentences ago. Why are we coming back to that? That's because this, more than a plain narrative, this is like lyrics. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 18 is like the lyrics of a song where the lyrics are accentuating and developing and reinforcing. When I shared that thought with Pastor Dick Foth, he's over at the Fort Collins campus this week, and I shared that, hey, I kind of see the first 18 verses of John as more like lyrics. And he said this brilliantly: it is believed by numbers of scholars that John 1 through 18 was indeed an early church hymn. And then he says this: imagine singing those words and savoring those truths every Lord's Day for all of your life. You can almost see an old, wizened man on his deathbed saying in a whisper as his children hold his hands, sing that to me one more time. So maybe we have to kind of set the mood if we're going to understand what old man John is after here. Maybe more than just reading it through like a simple narrative, we've got to catch what he's doing in poetry and in music. So would you hit the pad for a little bit? Genesis 1 begins in the beginning. And old man John says, yes. Yes, if you want to understand Jesus, if you want to understand this whole account that I'm going to lay out, you have to understand in the beginning. All the way back at the beginning, even before creation or any matter existed at all, was my friend, Jesus, the pre-existent one, basking in the life and the love of the Trinity. And even before life was created through my friend Jesus, because nothing exists that wasn't created through him. Before life itself came something else in the order of creation. Do you remember what the first element of creation was? Light. There's no life without light. No photosynthesis, no food chain. The first thing that God set up in the order of creation as a foundation for the condition of life to be possible was light. And maybe this is getting a little weird. We're talking about the Christmas story. What are we doing all the way back here? Well, John takes that creation account and says, I know who the light is. And I know what he represents to this world. That's why he riffs a little bit, to use a musical term, in his seasoned, artful mind's eye when he says this: in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. Light. In fact, later on, in his account of the life and words and teachings of Jesus, John remembers Jesus saying these words: I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Spoiler, that's what Christmas Eve is all about. And we're going to give you a fun take-home reminder for you and your friends that you invite, so that this can stay with us as a reminder that, as a teaser for Christmas Eve services, Jesus is the light of the world, a light we so desperately need. For those who have been a part of our Christmas Eve services in the past, you know, and for those that haven't, let me just tell you that there's a magical opportunity that we have when we pass out candles to everybody on the way in, and then near the end of our services, or at the end of our services, we dim the lights in here. And a person lights their candle, and then that person shares their light with the next person. As the lights are dimmed and the candles get lit, sharing it with one another, we ultimately get to the point where we get to all raise our lights up high and proclaim what Jesus said years and years and years ago, this truth, this celebration that he is the light of the world. It's magical, it's powerful, and it's what we're looking forward to for those that are stumbling around in the darkness of life. Those that are finding themselves just tossed to and fro by the waves and the disorientation of darkness. So this Advent season, this whole sermon series, this What sermon series is all about expectantly preparing for that moment, that movement in our lives, in our midst. And we'd love for you to help us with that, extending the invite to anybody that you know that might need a magical, powerful moment like that. Light and life, they are what they are because there's a distinction, a separation. Back all the way in Genesis chapter 1, the very beginnings, the very first stage of creation, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. And as we just read moments ago, Jesus says, whoever follows him will not walk in darkness. They'll have the light of life. And this contrast between light and darkness, much like in our time, in Greek thinking, and that's where one of the contexts old man John is writing within. In that thinking, darkness was kind of equated or themed out to be the soundtrack of sorts of wickedness and ignorance and death, whereas light is life and wisdom and joy. Darkness is ominous. Darkness is threatening. Darkness is disorienting. You don't know which way is up. And I think, in fact, I know there are way too many of us walking around overcome by darkness, surrounded by that these days. A few chapters later in John's account, Jesus says, everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed. But whoever does what is true comes to the light. Translation, light good, darkness bad. but it's not a fair fight. This isn't dualism. Dualism is this cosmic struggle between the forces of light and darkness, good and evil, yin and yang. That's a false theology. It's a false belief. It's called a heresy that the church has guarded against for hundreds of years. Don't get me wrong, there is a dichotomy, there is a difference between light and darkness, but it's nowhere near evenly matched. All the efforts, all the ignorance, all the consequences of darkness can't overcome the light. John said that in verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can't do anything about it. Darkness is unable to grasp the meaning of light. It's unable to extinguish it or overcome it. In any and all competition between light and darkness, light wins. It's not a battle that we hope to win, church. In any and all competition between light and darkness, light wins. Light is victorious over the darkness of division. Light is victorious over the darkness and the threat of sickness, even death. Light is victorious over the darkness of disorder and destruction and any forces opposed to truth and love. Jesus is the light of the world, and light wins. So when it comes to Old Man John's account, he knows. I'm talking in very cosmic, thematic terms, and I get that. But John is writing this because he knows that light is victorious over darkness for a fact. He walked with Jesus. He saw the way Jesus empowered his people to have power over the darkness of sickness, power over the darkness of sin. And he saw Jesus himself have power over even the darkness of death. John knows that light is victorious over darkness. And what he wants for us and from us is that we would believe what he believes. So in case all the vastness, the cosmos kind of level that we're talking here, in case that hasn't put you in a sense of awe and wonder, I want to share with you what did that specifically for me. And it's the part of this whole prologue that kind of stands out as awkward. It's the seemingly out of place inclusion of John the Baptist right in the middle of this poetic prologue, right in the middle of this cosmic hymn. You've got this vast, majestic call back to creation song that's playing. The kind of scope that light years and galaxies can't zoom out enough to catch a glimpse of. Musically speaking, you've got drums banging and horns blaring and strings and angelic choirs just bringing all of the power of this chorus together. Even up through verse 14, singing, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory is of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." And then the bridge happens, the bridge of this song, musically speaking. The bridge was briefly introduced back in verse 6, where it said there was a man sent from God whose name was John. And then once again, the bridge comes back and it hits like this. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me because he was before me." Now, if you're like me, you're sitting there going, I'm not sure that really fits in the epic ballad of your cosmic hymn, Old Man John, to have that bridge there about John the Baptist. But Old Man John orchestrated it like this on purpose. Because looking back with a fierce passion that we might believe, John the author, he knows that when this Jesus thing went real, when the reign of the King of the cosmos was fully and completely launched, and when it went public, it had a message to it. And that message had a messenger, John the Baptist. The trumpets have blasted. The heavenly angelic praise party ripped through the night years ago. That's something we'll talk about more next week. And John the Baptist, cousin of Jesus, 6 months his elder, comes forward as the proclaimer, the announcer, the herald. Maybe you're a baseball fan like me. John the Baptist is Jesus' walk-up song. Maybe you're an old wrestling fan. John the Baptist is Jesus' let's get ready to rumble. John the Baptist is Jesus' proverbial rolling out of the red carpet. He's here. He has come. In John the Baptist, there's a ground zero. The moment where and when the king of the cosmos, his reign, landed in full force. And what's so awe-inspiring here for me, what leaves me back in wonder is this. John the Baptist is an ordinary man that anchors this high-flying cosmic development of God at a specific place at a specific time. Can you imagine being on the earth around the time that God's salvation plan was finally and fully realized? Can you imagine being in the region? Can you imagine being involved? Can you imagine thousands of years later, amidst this cosmic hymn, your name is included, heralded as the messenger? For John the Apostle, John the Baptist serves as the reality check. He's the representative of a verifiable point in history where the big, vast, cosmic salvation plan of God hit our world at a real place in a real time. It wasn't a theory. It wasn't a hard-to-grasp hope. When God's plan of salvation was fully launched, John the Baptist was the messenger that was sent to connect the dots for people, to bear witness about the light that all might believe in him, as we read earlier, and to testify that this, Jesus, is he of whom I testified about and is worthy of our belief. So old man John takes us all the way from Jesus' Trinitarian place of glory, from the throne of endless glory, as we sang about earlier, from the King of Kings and the Lord of the cosmos to the cradle in the dirt, to the wondrous, almost inconceivable point in history where the King of Kings becomes this tiny speck conceived in Mary's womb, soon to lay there in a cradle in a manger in Bethlehem, and ultimately one day to the cross. The longest journey ever taken because of love and in pursuit of you. And a short while after John's poetic prologue has kind of faded and he really begins his account in the Gospel of John, he recalls the words the conversation Jesus had with a confused, maybe darkened mind of a Pharisee named Nicodemus. Jesus is having this conversation with Nicodemus, trying to explain to him what all is happening, what all the gospel is about. And he remembers, old man John remembers Jesus saying this, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." The longest journey ever taken from cosmos to cradle, because of love, and so that I will believe. You want to understand Christianity? You want to understand this season of Christmas, maybe awaken or reawaken awe and wonder? You want to know what this gospel truth of old is, as we sang about earlier? Discover or rediscover the wonder and awe of Jesus' journey from the cosmos to the cradle. Try to grasp that he did all of that because of his love for his people, like old man John, and like John the Baptist, and like John of Windsor, and you. And his love drove him to take the longest journey ever, and his purpose was so that you will believe. That's the reason for the season. That's what you need to understand about all the music and the decorations and the parties and the songs and the Christmas at the farm, all of it for one purpose, so that you will believe. My friends on the worship team are going to rejoin me back up here on stage, and as they do, if this awestruck wonder is stirring something in you, if it's awakening something in you, there's a real timeless magic to the season that I'd love to invite you into. It's a tradition that the people of the church have done in all kinds of nations, in all kinds of eras, going all the way back to John the Baptist. In fact, the next time that the heavens would break through the darkness and reveal such heavenly pleasure, the next time that happens after the angels proclaim glory and worship and praise to the shepherds, is at Jesus' baptism. Whenever we celebrate baptisms, we celebrate lives that hit old man John's primary point: believers. And we model that, and we show that, and we celebrate that in the way that God instructed John the Baptist to lead and direct people through baptism. Some of the baptisms we celebrate are people that have made that choice to believe long ago. And for many different reasons, they're taking this opportunity to mark the season and celebrate that. Some are people that are taking this opportunity of baptism to set an important spiritual marker, to say, I am giving my life more fully, more completely over to the victory of light. Maybe you've heard about this invite in weekend service announcements like Pastor Patrick shared earlier in the service, or newsletter, or social media. But I'm taking this time right now for those of us here, those watching online, those maybe listening later this week on podcast, because I can't think of a better reason to lean into the magic of the season than baptism. Students, singles, parents, grandparents, I'm talking to you. If your heart is stirring in anticipation, pay attention to that in this season. If the threats of darkness have just seemed to overwhelm you, and you need an opportunity to take a spiritual stand and say, light wins, allow baptism to be your moment of celebration and declaration. Maybe faith in following Jesus has become stale or distracted or boring for you. And as I said at the very beginning, you're drawn to this idea to awaken awe and wonder and adventure about faith. Use baptism as that spiritual pivot point and celebration for you. And of course, for those who are awakened to believe the gospel for the first time, this is the good news, the greatest news that there is, of the way the love of God came after us and pursued us and took upon himself the penalty that we deserve so that we could be freely and fully forgiven, and then ushered into, invited into eternal, never-ending life that was proven in his resurrection. This is the message with the power to awaken faith in the saints. And it's the gospel is the message that in and of itself has the power to awaken faith in those who are dark and far from God. And if that's where you're at, you need to accept the light and the forgiveness and the salvation that Jesus offers. I want you to join me in prayer right now. Jesus, you are the light of the world. I choose to believe in that. And I ask you to lead me to accept your love and guide me in new life. Amen. So new belief or renewed belief. If that's where you're at, if that's what God's stirring in you, I invite you to join us tonight here at this campus at 5 p.m. for baptism class. just to talk about it, to talk about prepare for those who are planning on celebrating baptisms, and for questions if you have them. And if you're listening later via podcast, email us and we'll make sure to get you involved and participate in this. But with enormous gratitude to Old Man John here, we're going to invite you to launch off from his song to your song. Because the story kept going past what he just witnessed. The church of Christ was born, and the Spirit lit the flame, as we sang about. And the gospel truth of old, shall not kneel, shall not faint. We're inviting you to pick up where Old Man John left off in his hymn and join in with yours. So if you're able, let's stand and let's proclaim worship to the King of Kings.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope and without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. And the church of Christ was born. Then the Spirit lit the flame. Now the gospel truth of old shall not kneel, it shall not faint. By his blood and in his name, in his freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Holy, are you, Lord God Almighty? Worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb. You are holy, are you, Lord God Almighty? Worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb. You are holy, are you, Lord God Almighty? Worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings.
My prayer throughout this week has simply been that God, just like you broke through the darkness all those years ago, would you break through the darkness of familiarity, of spiritual boredom, and give your people a sense of wonder and awe at who you are. So let me pray that over us. God, I pray for you to awaken vibrant, lightful faith. Faith that does not fear the darkness because we know it's not a fair fight. Faith that says, I know whose I am, and I know that I am created in his image, and I know that I am valuable because of what he spent to save me. Faith that knows these things and believes. Break through the darkness of monotony, of spiritual boredom, and of distraction of the world, and stir awe and wonder in your people. In your name, for your glory, we go as your church. Amen. Love you guys. Hope to see you tonight at baptism class.